Yes. Check 1, 2. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you came. I am the zebra of angst who defeated a predator and took his place amongst his tribe. Now I search as they do for a prey worthy of angsty prowess. Anyway, on Twitch I go by the angsty zebra predator. It's a medium-length story, don't ask. I'm going to continue doing my thug thizzle, so let's just get into it. No, before I get into it anyway, I'm just gonna kind of try to give a little bit of context of how I came to do this. Before I started to get interested in the nuts and bolts of good storytelling and good stories in general, I really enjoyed Th3Birdman's channel and Cinema Sins. I still love a good honest trailer, and many other film reviewers and critiquers, or critics, or whatever you want to call them. I've been subscribed to Birdman and Cinema Sins for some time now, but at some point along the way, for some reason, I started to watch them less and less. I mean, I think in general, I just started to watch less and less of those types of film critiques, and as a result, got recommended them less and less. However, recently, Th3Birdman was back on my radar, back in the algo. Is it because he's doing a stellar job, has insightful commentary and compelling views about some new blockbuster out? Oh. He's calling other creators racists and bigots, like a YouTube Al Sharpton or something. Well, being admittedly a rookie in this game, I've been quite happy to chill on the sidelines and observe the decimation with a neat whiskey. Squabble after squabble, my man's just been getting in. Drinker, utensil, shandy. And I'm seeing bad faith arguments, straw mans, convenient editing. It's been both fun and sad to see. So, why am I deciding to step on the field now? Because I feel like it. Because I'm a buff baby and I dance like a man. I'm marching with the band because I think that I can. That being said, this particular video that Th3Birdman opened up, or uploaded, I don't know what I was thinking. This particular, if I can find it here. Okay, let's see if I can get the damn thing to work here. That ought to do it. So this video right here. Can you read that, people? Debunking conspiracy theorists, Lord Jamar, the Flat Earth. So this particular video did interest me a bit. it aroused my curiosity because I don't know. I mean, about 10 years ago, about a decade ago, I saw some things that made me question what I'd been taught in government classrooms for all those years. But I'm not I'm not exactly here to defend Lord Jamar. I'll just try to maybe ask some additional questions, maybe provide some sources that neither Birdman or Jamar will provide. I did watch most of this video ahead of time, and I mean, it's funny. I thought the talking points surrounding the issue may have changed in the 10 years or so that I've kind of been away from it, but I was naive. Both sides have remained almost identical to the arguments that were being used then, except for I actually did find a few newer examples that at least were new to me upon researching some of the things brought up in this video. So, what do we do? Let's get into it.
You're a flat earther, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Lord Jamar is a flat earther, everyone.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Birdman here. So, we've got another rapper dipping his toes into the conspiracy kiddie pool, and of course, it's another flat earther. Let's hear what he has to say and see if I can't answer the questions he raises, shall we?
Why are you a flat earther, sir?
Because it's ridiculous to think that someone can live on a ball, to think that water could wrap itself around a spinning ball, to think that people could be on the bottom of a fucking ball and be upside down because some magical thing called gravity is allowing it to happen.
So that was a lot, but let's reiterate his points so that we may answer his claims. Number one, it's ridiculous to think that someone can live on a ball. Well, not quite. Most arthropods can walk upside down on a ball, so this idea isn't inherently ridiculous on its own, but we know what Lord Jamar means, so let's get to point number two. It's ridiculous to think water can wrap itself around a spinning ball. Of course, Jamar's position entirely relies on his understanding of balls that are on Earth. Yes, it's not immediately intuitive that water can stick to a globe when you've spent your entire life on Earth, which has a gravitational pull, meaning any water on other balls would fall off and be pulled to the Earth itself, because its gravitational well is much larger than that of a tennis ball, for example. So this is why he believes it's ridiculous for water to stick to a ball, because he believes there is an objective down for the water of the ocean to fall off. The problem, of course, is that people who espouse this idea have no understanding of what gravity is and how or why it works. Whenever I ask these people why does water fall down on a flat Earth, they quite literally invoke gravity by saying density and buoyancy, two concepts that rely on gravity to work in tandem. Which brings me to his third point. Gravity is a magical force. Now, there is some truth to this statement, in that there are many things we don't understand about gravity, and things we don't understand seem magical to us until we understand it. I'd imagine if you took an iPhone 7 back in time to the Middle Ages, they'd burn you for witchcraft. However, what we do know about gravity is that it exists. Henry Cavendish performed an experiment in the late 18th century using a telescope and 4 lead balls that proved there was a gravitational constant. In simple terms, a number that tells us how strong gravity is between two objects of any size. Imagine you have 2 small lead spheres and 2 big lead spheres. The small spheres are on the end of a horizontal bar that can spin freely, like a seesaw. The big spheres are placed near the small ones, but not touching them. Gravity then pulls the small spheres towards the big ones. This pull is very weak because the balls are small, but it's still there. As the small spheres are pulled, the bar moves slightly. By carefully measuring how much the bar turns, we can figure out the strength of the gravitational force between the spheres. From this, we can calculate the gravitational constant and learn more about how gravity works everywhere in the universe, and this includes the Earth itself. So while we can't, in 2024, fully explain everything about gravity, we can absolutely prove that it exists.
Right. Well, what can I say here? What should I say here? Cavendish's experiment. I mean, it's like, again, what I would say from the typical playbook. That's what we're drawing from, I see. So where to start? Well, let's just admit that there's a lot of issues with this experiment that were brought up at the time, afterward, and up until now. This particular experiment, like, I don't know, inherent material properties. Every material is composed of atoms that consist of charged particles, protons, and electrons. It is plausible that even if an object seems neutral, minuscule imbalances in charge could develop from various factors like friction, material interaction, and environmental environmental factors. AC Advances in Physics, 1980, Overlooking Electrostatics, Charging Induction, Effects of Earth's Electrical Field, Relative Magnitude Forces, and I mean, all of these are literal citations from physics books, as recent as 2012 here, with the charge induction citation, Griffiths, David J. Introduction of Electrodynamics, Princeton Hall, Inc., 2012. I mean, a lot of them. A lot of them. Any one or all of these factors could potentially skew the results of the experiment. And I've seen someone do it with a pencil in their hand and pretend that it's a magic trick. So I'd be real careful about it. But I do want to show you this Forbes article real quick that you can look up yourself. I'll put the link in the description. Let me move myself. Yeah, but this particular article goes into, the problems with that experiment and why the experiment's wrong and yada, yada, yada. But I feel as though we can move on there. I believe. Yeah. So yeah, let's just continue with it. Let me get my mic real quick.
So the water should be pouring into space then.
Everything should be pulled into space, into the so-called vacuum of space if there's no covering.
This is a popular talking point by flat earthers and one that is easily proven wrong. You see, when flurfs hear the word vacuum, they immediately think of a Dyson or a Hoover, those household appliances that physically suck in debris. A vacuum in physics, however, is simply a space where there is no or relatively little stuff. Things are not sucked out into the vacuum of space. This is a very common misconception due to science fiction films showing blowouts. What those films are actually demonstrating are pressure differentials, but I digress. Gravity holds things to the Earth, including the ocean, as there are no competing forces that would send the water into space. In order for things to move, there has to be a force applied to that thing. This is Physics 101.
You think we're in a dome?
Okay, see, I'm not sure what to make of his argument or my understanding of science's argument on this. Yeah, let's take a look here. Cause I'm thinking about it. Like, what do they want me to believe? Okay, if the moon's gravity is strong enough to exert a pull on water away from the earth in any regard, then I have no idea what prevents that exertion of gravity or that pull. What prevents it from pulling? I mean, not so much as a drop all the way from our clouds or raindrops or the ocean, all the way, especially the gases, you would think, like, but no, because apparently gravity doesn't exert any force on gases. But okay, so it can control it can move all the water on the earth and create tides with the moon's gravity. And on the other hand, the larger mass is supposed to exert its force, the force of its gravity on the smaller mass. Then the earth should be exerting its gravitational pull onto the moon, and the moon shouldn't be able to produce the effects that cause the tides. However, I will concede. I'm just spitballing. I'm guessing on this. Like, I don't actually know. I haven't studied enough to know how they even propose the gravitational relationships like that would even function. So I'll let it go.
Absolutely. Although, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Oh shit! You
Here's
never
the
heard
thing.
this shit, huh?
Hey,
Explain.
here's the thing, right? There's certain things that they don't allow you to explore, right? So there's certain things allowed to go to.
Or Jamar, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, this idea that space and proving there is or isn't a crystal dome. In fact, there was an act passed by Congress in 1984 that explicitly private long as its SpaceX is knowledge. Oh, and money.
All the different civilizations prior to that knew that we lived on a level plane.
Whereas the heliocentric model was relatively rare in antiquity, the idea that the planet is spherical was not. The Greeks knew the Earth was spherical in the time of Aristotle, who provided evidence for the shape of the Earth as early as the 4th century BCE. His evidence was Earth's shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse, something we all can observe at least once a year. For those that don't know, a lunar eclipse is when the Earth is between a full moon and the sun, and the moon passes in front of the shadow formed.
Now, this is an interesting question that we can actually have. Because I have a guess, and I don't think that he'll touch this at all with the 39.5-foot pole, but I will. There are these rare astronomical events, eclipses called selenion eclipses. Jojo, get over here. can you edit out a word and post? Like, you can, right? Like, I mean, I know the live, but like, because I can't say this shit. Okay, like, during this specific type of eclipse, a viewer can see both the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time. Now, hopefully, following me won't be difficult for you. If the sun, the earth, and the moon need to be lined up like billiard balls in that order, as you're showing in this particular photograph, these selenion eclipses shouldn't be possible. Yet they happen, although they are rare, I will say. That being said, okay, that was alright. That being said, if you ask me what's causing these eclipses in the flat earth model, I'd have to say I got no fucking clue. No clue at all. Well, I have one clue, but it's almost impossible to get any good examples of it. So I think it's best we save that for another time and move onward.
By the Earth. As the Earth's shadow on the moon is curved, this means the
One more question regarding that shadow. If memory serves me right, Neil deGrasse Tyson says the Earth isn't a perfect sphere. In fact, it's an oblate spheroid, pear-shaped. Somehow the Earth still casts a perfect circle shadow instead of a pear shadow. Why is that?
shape of the Earth must be round. There is no other explanation for lunar eclipses.
Okay, water always finds its what?
Level.
Exactly.
I love this talking point so much because it immediately demonstrates the person has no idea what they're talking about. Level on planet Earth simply means perpendicular to the Earth's core. That's it. Further, this idea that water always finds its level is immediately debunked by the existence of tides. We are all familiar with the concept of high and low tides exist. It affects the oceanic tides across the globe, but for those of us that don't understand this, think about what's happening to the water when the tide is low. That water went somewhere, right? And we all know it's not low tide everywhere on Earth, meaning one place's low tide is another place's high tide. This means there is literally a swell of water at any given time in the middle of the ocean that's higher in one place and lower in the other. This is impossible if the Earth were flat because water always finds its level, right?
Now, look at that. Examine that closely. Because you have to think about it this way. Although he's claimed that both gravity does have an effect on water and doesn't have an effect on water, that it's holding the water down, yet that there isn't a force being applied to it. So it's kind of hard to really understand exactly what he's trying to say. But yes, water left alone finds a level. It runs downhill. It makes perfect sense to have rivers go uphill in certain areas of a globe. But it doesn't make any sense for rivers to ever go upstream on a, you know what I mean? To flow uphill on a flat model, it doesn't. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I still feel like if it doesn't have a force applied to it, it does find its level. But either it's wind and changes in temperature and atmospheric differences and weather in general that creates waves, or it's gravity. But either way, I don't think that necessarily proves anything about the shape I could be wrong. Let's continue.
Water always needs a what? A container. You see?
Yeah.
I can't have this drink on the outside of my cup. It must be on the inside of my cup. It must have a container.
Water needs a container, you say? Well, what do you call all this containerless water?
So there's
How cute. I believe we've been speaking about the fluid version of water, not water light in gas form. And water being in the air unfettered by gravity does not support or help your argument here, Tweety. I don't know what you're thinking about right now. Okay, then my notes here say we can go ahead and go to 10:15 or so.
Someone has touched about the Earth no longer sound.
this is the
These of Australia place in New York.
runways. Why can't I go up in a helicopter for an hour if the world is spinning?
Uh-huh.
Why can't I hover for an hour and come back down and be somewhere else?
Because, Jamar, helicopters require air to fly. Air is a part of the atmosphere, and as we've already discussed, gravity is holding everything to the Earth, including.
Okay. So gravity holds everything to the earth, the atmosphere and included. Now, what does he mean by holds everything to the earth? What exactly does he mean by this? Now, the reason I ask you that question is because does it mean that gravity is pulling things to the core of the earth? If that's what it means, then I see very little reason why gravity couldn't pull all of the oxygen and all of the gases that are much lighter and able to pass through the earth much easier than even liquids. Why it couldn't pull all the gases? Why is gravity so picky? Like, I'm really wondering, like, why doesn't it pull everything down to the core? How is there oxygen to breathe? How does a beach ball not sink straight to the bottom of the ocean? Why doesn't the water get pulled into the mantle of the earth? Gravity seems to be a fucking magic McMuffin in this particular plot that does whatever the plot needs it to do for your narrative. Because if it doesn't, then the entire narrative collapses in on itself. It almost seems like you've put an infinity sign into an equation, a mathematical equation, and claimed that you solved it or something.
The atmosphere. Since you were on Earth when you left the ground in the helicopter, you retain the rotational momentum of the planet and are spinning along with the Earth. I think.
Interesting deduction. So if the Earth is traveling eastward at 1,000 miles per hour, and I get in a plane and I travel westward at 500 miles per hour, how exactly does me carrying the eastward momentum translate to something that we can observe in my trip out west? What about east? What about north or south? Is there any kind of drag? Or because the gravity is holding everything to the earth, it's as if the earth isn't even spinning at all. It's just a very familiar trope that seems to be coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. How convenient.
Flurfs believe that once they jump off the ground, they're no longer on Earth, but the atmosphere is still very much a tangible part of the planet. The laws of motion are easily demonstrated with a car crash. Once the car stops abruptly, your body continues moving in that same direction, and this is why we wear seat belts, Jamar.
Damn. That makes sense.
No, it doesn't, Godfrey. No, it doesn't.
Time for an oil change, Philip. That last place took 3.
This is what I heard. I was talking to a former fighter pilot, and they get up to 50,000 feet, like 20,000 something more feet. And I said, do you see the curvature of the Earth? He says, yes, we do.
He's lying to you. He's a Mason. I guarantee it.
And if his flat earth beliefs didn't convince you that he's a conspiracy nut, the Mason accusations about a person he's never met does the trick. It's also a boomer accusation. I haven't heard someone be called a Mason or a part of the Illuminati since I was in middle school. These days,
Great place to pause. Well, I'll tell you this. Somebody's lying. That's for damn sure. Because we've got Neil deGrasse Tyson again. He's over here saying, barring actually going into space, nobody can get high enough to see any curvature. Because you're like a flea on the bottom of a fucking elephant or some shit. But you're saying that we should trust the government pilots who claim to see the curvature. Pilots who were literally brainwashed to get through basic and wouldn't risk their jobs to say anything contrary to what the government would expect their property to be saying. It's very rare that you'll find someone who's been through that training who's willing to go against the party line, so to speak. It says we can skip ahead a little bit.
it's the woke.
The woke mind virus. Well, it goes by many names, but it's been around for a long time. And it's those people who would choose safe and secure slavery over dangerous freedom. People like you, like Destiny. Well, I mean, there's a lot of you. And I'm not even saying that's necessarily wrong. I think it's feminine, but it's not necessarily like inherently wrong to feel that way. It just winds up giving a lot of power to psychopaths to claw their way into powerful positions wherever groups of humans congregate for long enough. But yeah, let's jump back in.
Mind virus.
Damn.
I guarantee you this guy is a Mason.
Really?
Because I have...
They to go because got 20,000 miles.
You always see a level plane. As high as the observer goes, there is always a level plane. There is no curvature.
Well then, what the hell is this? This is
Oh my goodness, who could have foreseen this guy lives in the government official narrative playbook? Bleep, bloop, blurp. This is how you respond to dissenting opinions in this case. Here's the blue marble photograph. Do I even begin? Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. I mean, most people probably haven't heard any of this anyway. Let me first tell you that this image is the only image that NASA claims is an unaltered image. Not a composite, not CGI. This is the only one they claim is 100% authentic photograph. Now, I'm gonna pull up this video. I don't give a fuck what happens. It'll be useful. I got I believe it's like a 8 to 10 minute section of a 47-minute documentary. We ain't gonna watch the whole documentary, but I'm gonna show you this portion so you can get an understanding of how the photo was taken. But before I do, look at this image. Look at really look at
blue mark.
Curvature.
Well then,
really look at it. Look at the continents. Look at the size of the continent. Look at the placement of it. Now again, I might be like not seeing it correctly or something like that. But isn't Africa supposed to be mostly, like, most of it's supposed to be below the equator, right? And the Sahara is directly on the equator, right? So why does it appear like North Africa is damn near at the North Pole? And why does it look like Africa takes the entire hemisphere up, just about? Anyway, let me cue up this video for y'all. And like I said, it's like maybe 7 to 9 minutes, something like that. But Apollo 11 footage that they released to the public. One of these videos they released by mistake. I'll let you guess which one. It probably isn't the one where they're faking photos of the Earth, pretending to be further away from Earth than they really are. I'm sure that's not the case. Let me grab that real quick. Let me cue this up real quick. What just happened?
Apollo 11 brought a
Yeah, so like 10 minutes, guys. Just rock with me for just that long, all right? Let me get my guy out of the way for now. And I will be back momentarily, but trust me, it's worth it. And it's perfect. I mean, I'm sorry. It shows you exactly what we're dealing with.
assuming that it was the astronauts inside after all, their faces were always covered. The necessary mammoth amounts of air conditioning were probably responsible for the air current. Here the editor cuts to a still shot of the flag, just as the effect becomes noticeable. Here it is unchecked. A notable increase in experience, the floaty feel to the astronauts' movements would be similarly achieved with relative simplicity. Slow motion. You are viewing the scenes as they aired more than 30 years ago. Now let's look at them with the speed doubled. It becomes discernible that they are, in fact, in Earth's gravity and are no more leaving the ground than they would on Earth. It is clear from these rarely seen color television pictures that the crew of Apollo 11 brought a high-resolution color video camera with them on their mission, yet the only pictures broadcast live from the moon's surface were these from a low-definition black and white camera. In fact, the networks complained because in addition to this, they were forced to shoot the images, second generation, off of a projection TV of the technology of 30 years ago, and were not even allowed to take a direct feed, which further degraded the quality and clarity of the images. Perhaps this was precisely what NASA and the federal government had in mind. After all, it was a first, regardless of where they were. Better to open up their debut mission with fuzzy pictures and numerous blackouts, rather than show too much revealing detail of a false scene that was yet unproven. And finally, the element that seals their fate. Of all the footage of Apollo 11 requested from NASA over a 5-year period, one gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr., and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance in order to falsely demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. It cannot be misconstrued that this staging was done for some other reason prior to the mission, for the reel itself is slated and dated July 18th, 19th, and 20th, 1969, the very days of the mission when they were said to be approaching and achieving lunar orbit. Furthermore, it is apparent they are in genuine zero gravity aboard the actual spacecraft, necessary to convince the mass media of their authenticity, just not any further than Earth orbit, as you will see. In this never-before-seen or heard footage, not only is the radio conversation between the astronauts and Houston Control audible, there is a secondary, private conversation taking place between the crew and a third confidential party, prompting the astronauts with what to say, when to speak, and how to effectively manipulate the camera to achieve the desired misleading effect. NASA claims that the Houston transmissions were the only ones taking place with the astronauts. Listen now as Houston Control initiates a conversation with the crew, only to find them too preoccupied with the behind-the-scenes trickery to respond. Moments pass and the oversight is picked up on by the clandestine third party, who quickly prompts them with, "Talk." Immediately, Neil Armstrong speaks.
Hello, Apollo 11. Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over. Okay, Roger. We're mapping in on Earth.
Again, the illusion they are attempting to create is the Earth at a distance to demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public, and these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private, until now. Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed. They were first screened and edited for playback later.
Roger, Neil. We just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get the playback, we can sort of correlate what we're seeing. Thank you very much.
Here they discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows, as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Okay, very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window, and there isn't any reflected light.
The reason this was done is so that the truth of the matter would not be revealed. It is this. Though the federal government would have you believe that this is a view of Earth from a distance out of the spacecraft's window as it nears the moon, it is not. What they have ingeniously done is placed the camera at the back of the spacecraft and centered the lens on a circular window in the foreground, outside of which it is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. The circumference of the window then appears to be the diameter of the Earth at a distance, with the darkened walls of the spacecraft appearing to be the blackness of space around it. That is why they wanted the interior dark and blocked out the sun from entering through the other windows. Here you can see the extruded window, probably 2 inches thick at the bottom. This is because the Earth's shine is coming in at a downward angle. It also causes the Earth to appear to be an irregularly shaped circle, for you are seeing the outside of the window at the bottom and the inside of the window at the top, which together form 2 different sized halves of a circle. Subsequently, this take was never used. As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day. It is uncannily convincing. During this segment, intended to be edited and played back later for the worldwide television audience, dated July 18, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out, or halfway to the moon, as the NASA flight log also states on this date, when he is in reality in low Earth orbit of a few hundred miles.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
If the window was completely filled up with a TV camera, as he stated, then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between the camera and the window, as it obviously does here in this outtake.
South America becomes invisible just off beyond the Terminator or inside the shadow.
You can also notice how the astronaut operating the camera reacted to the mistake by attempting to pan away from it.
Blue cast, see white bands of major cloud formations across the Earth.
This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work, and apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls, but not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up and you can see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window. Here is the slate for the 19th of July, and the same shot of trickery on the 19th of July, and then the 20th, and the same misleading shot on the 20th. Later that evening, they were said to be walking on the moon. How can this be when they were in Earth orbit only 9 hours earlier, and the moon is some 3 days' journey away? Furthermore, if they genuinely went to the moon, why would they be faking any part of it? Why this trickery with the window? By faking being halfway to the moon, it becomes apparent that they did so because they could not even go halfway. It thus confirms that the stumbling block to their success was the lethal radiation of the Van Allen radiation belts. Since the same equipment was used on the subsequent missions in the 40 months that followed, none of them could have gone to the moon. They only increased their proficiency at staging them. When some TV viewers of the second manned mission to the moon telephoned the networks complaining that reruns of I Love Lucy were being interrupted, it became clear that for the taxpayers, once was enough.
Yeah. So using that blue marble image probably isn't the best thing for you to use, but you probably didn't know that they did all that for that, just so people like you would have that much more faith in the science that they had been teaching us for 500 plus years. Alright, let's get back into it.
What the hell is this? This is The Blue Marble, a photograph taken by NASA astronauts in 1972, years before computer graphics and Photoshop were even remotely capable of producing an image with this level of detail and clarity. Is this not showing the curve of the Earth? Or was the camera a Mason too?
There should be, by Pythagorean's theory, right? There should be 8 inches of curvature per square mile, visible curvature that you see.
At this point, you can tell Jamar has been watching Flurf YouTube videos in order to prepare for this interview, but was only watching just enough to sound like he knows what he's talking about to people that don't understand these things. First of all, he means 8 inches per.
Wait a minute. I think I zoned out.
Theory
Was the with two
is no curvature.
He did.
Well then, what the hell is this? This is The Blue Marble, a photograph taken by NASA astronauts in
I thought
1972, years before computer graphics and Photoshop were even remotely.
Oh my God. I had it in my notes, but I guess I was like, oh no, he didn't say that. Okay, yeah, he did. All right, y'all. What do I even say at this point? I mean, really, it's what. This is why, like, I'm starting to really wonder if he's intentionally being obtuse, stupid, or a disingenuous fuck knockout. He's implying that photo manipulation only started in 1987 when Photoshop came around. It only came into existence with digital photography. Well, he's either trying to manipulate his viewers, or he's ignorant, or I don't really care. He's just wrong, because photo manipulation is as old as photography itself. Let me cue up another fucking video. My goodness. I think I only need a couple of minutes of this one, though.
In this video, I want to give you a brief history of photo manipulation. Brief and a little bit fleeting. I can't cover every detail because it's actually a very long and complicated history, but I want to give you some highlights. There's a misconception among many people that photo manipulation really emerged with the invention of digital photography and contemporary softwares, but nothing could be farther from the truth. Photo manipulation emerged pretty much as soon as photography was invented in 1839. Now, the first photo I'm going to show you is from just a little bit later than that. This is from 1851.
Do you see what I'm saying? This man's arguments are as flimsy as the plot lines that he defends in movies. Okay, let's just continue for now. See what my notes say. I don't want to call it early. I got notes for a reason. We're
Capable
going
of
to go
producing
over
an image with this level of detail and clarity. Is this not showing the curve of the Earth? Or was the camera a Mason too?
There should be, by Pythagorean's theory, right? There should be 8 inches of curvature per square mile, visible curvature that you see.
At this point, you can tell Jamar has been watching Flurf YouTube videos in order to prepare for this interview, but was only watching just enough to sound like he knows what he's talking about to people that don't understand these things. First of all, he means 8 inches per mile squared, not 8.
Okay, I see where we're going with this. Doesn't matter what you're saying right now. Point is, here's this: the Bedford Level experiment. Put a flag on a boat, went 6 miles away, used that's 10 kilometers, and then used a little looking glass and was able to see it completely level with another flag at the same height. That's essentially the experiment. You can look it up yourself. It proved the whole, they shouldn't have been able to see that flag. It should have been hidden by the curvature. It's a very simple experiment anybody can do. Or you could look at the Bolivian salt flats. That's an even grosser example of scientifically verified flatness, where this curvature formula, this drop formula, just for some reason doesn't apply. And now I believe my notes say, fuck this nigga. Oh no, they don't say that yet. Okay, just skip a little bit. And we'll get to this Big Bang bullshit and we'll start moving a little bit faster, I think. Alright, let me get my mic.
Inches per square mile. Those are two entirely different things, with the former being the rate of vertical drop over distance, and the other is a measurement spread out over an area. You would use 8 inches per square mile to measure something like how much snow is on the ground, for example.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
The Big Bang Theory.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time an explosion, which usually destroys things, created something?
While this video is not about the Big Bang, I'll bite. First of all, the Big Bang was not an explosion, as most scientific illiterates think it was. The Big Bang was simply the sudden expansion of space.
Okay. Not an explosion. Gotcha. Not an explosion. A sudden expansion. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. When something explodes, the shell that it is in suddenly expands, doesn't it? I mean, these concepts aren't as different as you seem to be implying they are for this example.
Space-time from a singular point. The effects of this expansion can be observed today with the cosmic microwave background radiation. Second, the Big Bang created naturally occurring phenomena such as gases and heat.
Gotcha. So nothing created gases, gravity, and heat. How many times have you seen anything be created by nothing, Chris Anderson?
Jamar is implying that an explosion cannot create a microphone or something complex, but scientists don't suggest that's what the Big Bang did either, so this is a straw man argument. Heat, gravity, dust, and gases created stars, and the leftover remnants became planets and asteroids. That's what the Big Bang.
Help save lives. Donate plasma today.
That's what the Big Bang created, rocks. Okay. That's what the Big Bang created.
Rocks.
Rocks. Baby. The Birdman. Ask Lil Wayne when the last time he seen nothing create rocks. Without even the baking soda. Without even the cocaine. With nothing, it created everything. Because you're trying to limit right now what it sounds like that the Big Bang created. You're trying to make it sound like, well, the Big Bang technically only created gravity and gases and heat. And then the gravity, gases, and heat created stars. And then the stars created the rocks. And so therefore, the Big Bang really didn't do anything. And it's like, no. In your model, the Big Bang created everything because all the conditions that allowed for a single-celled organism to become alive and then for it to slide up, I guess it became alive and it became imbued with the DNA that would allow it to create all the fungi, plants, and animals and people on the planet. I believe the current theory is 4 billion years ago, some primordial ooze slid up on a rock and was struck by lightning, and that created the first cell, and that cell was imbued with that DNA that allowed it to become everything. That's a hell of a faith you got on you. That's all I can say. Let's continue.
Billions of years ago.
No, because that's what they told you.
Told us, right. That's what I know.
When can I do an experiment? Right now, they're doing a hadron collider, trying to fucking find the God particle, because they're trying to find creation out of destruction, and you never will, because there was a lie.
So he went on a little tangent there, and I'm not particularly interested in the religious aspect of the argument, but I am interested in Godfrey's mention of billions of years and Jamar's almost instant rejection of that idea. This tells me that Jamar is likely a young Earth creationist, or one of those people that believe the Earth is only about 6,000 to 10,000 years old. That is easily disproved. Elemental decay is something we've understood for a long time. In short, unstable atoms change into more stable atoms by giving off radiation, where they lose neutrons or electrons in a process called
Oh. Usually somebody would put it right up on their screen. They would put it up there and they would call this carbon dating. They wouldn't talk to you about half-lives and stuff like this right out the gate. They wouldn't call it radioactive decay because it's not a phrase that people readily identify. And why would you use a phrase like this? You know, if I was a betting man, and maybe it's just me, you notice that he didn't use the word carbon dating. He's not using that phrase. This tells me that the sphincter abuser, Th3Birdman, attorney at law, knows full well what I'm about to tell you. Carbon dating has no efficacy. Let me tell you a little story. A volcano erupted. Scientists found some cooled magma from that eruption. It had become a rock. They tested the rock's age with carbon dating. Hey, we know this rock is 3 days old. Let's prove the efficacy of carbon dating. Oh, shit, whoops. It says the rock is 80 million years old. Missed it by that much. I have yet to find one example that I can point to of carbon dating accurately figuring out the death date of anything that has a known death date. If it has a known death date, it can't find an accurate reading. It can't find an accurate death date for it. But they trust it to tell them the death date of unknown specimens. You see what I'm saying? That, along with the fact that scientists have proven that under certain circumstances, fossils can be created in as little as 24 hours. Under what conditions, you ask? Like a flood, for instance. How shocking is that? Therefore, the notion of Earth being as old as carbon dating would suggest is seemingly becoming the fairy tale a religious zealot scientific cult would cling to. Nothing more, nothing less.
radioactive decay. All elements that are roughly.
That's fucking stupid. You will never see Europe from New York City. You know why? Because there's a thing called atmosphere. And atmosphere acts like...
Atmosphere is not necessary to explain why you can't see things that are too far away for the human eye to see. The human eye has limits. It can only see so far. You don't have a fucking eagle's vision, do you? But you can see much further with, let's say, a telescope or a really good camera with a really good zoom. And you can bring those ships that supposedly went over the curvature and shouldn't be able to be seen through the water, you can bring them back into focus. They've gone past the horizon, right? But you can bring them right back into focus.
like a glass.
It from also
Go a little bit.
Wait, anyway.
Should be under the. First of all, what's it called? A horizon, right?
Yes.
What's the root word of horizon? Horizontal.
You know what the origin of the word stupid?
Okay. I wanted to make note of this. Just remember, because I'm not going to play it at the end, I don't think, if we even get all the way to those very last few minutes. But at the end, he's going to chastise Lord Jamar for being rude or dismissive to people's super chats. Right? But what would you call this? Bird person wouldn't be a hypocrite. He wouldn't be engaged in the same behaviors that he admonishes others for doing, would he? Nah, never. Caw. Fuck. Oh shit. Alright.
It is, Jamar, to be amazed, like I am right now at this level of stupidity. The origin of the word horizon is from the Greek word meaning circle. Yeah, how do you like that?
Yeah. Circle. What do you know? People really forget that a two-dimensional circle is also... Can you answer what? Because you're using it as if it means a sphere. And I guess you could stretch the meaning of a circle to mean that, but typically what does the meaning of a circle? What is it? A circle is typically a two-dimensional object. To use your brain meats, focus all 2 grams of them together. Just because something is described as round or a circle doesn't mean that it's necessarily 3-dimensional. That's right. Good bird. A 2-dimensional circle is also round. So it doesn't necessarily mean spherical. You are a good bird after all. I think you'll figure it out. Maybe. All right, we can skip ahead a little bit. I can let this go.
Are you using your home address for business but know it's
The Earth is massive. This translates to you having to be really far from the Earth to see what it actually looks like, and since we are all essentially bacteria on the surface of a bowling ball, our perception is skewed and unreliable.
You don't believe there's gravity.
There's density and buoyancy. There's no such thing as gravity.
No such thing as gravity.
I told you these lunatics always invoke density and buoyancy, and he's reading directly from their playbook. I'm telling you.
My man. My chicken man. You've been going directly from a certain playbook as well. Let's continue. Let's just continue.
This guy literally just watched a Flurf YouTube video before this. It's uncanny. Anyway, density is a measure of how much mass something has. In scientific terms, density is mass per unit of volume. Notice how that has nothing to do with why things fall down? Buoyancy is the propensity of things to float in a given medium. The problem is buoyancy is a scientific concept that invokes gravity in its formula.
Here, the Avis Z-Zer is implying that buoyancy and density rely on gravity without ever truly explaining how that's the case. It's because he's full of foul shit. Unfortunately. The article that he is using from Wikipedia, of course, straight from the Destiny playbook, readily admits that it could be a gravitational force or some other force. So him, Birdman, claiming either of these things relies on gravity in all cases is simply false. Density describes the mass of an object. Buoyancy is determined by the density of an object and its relation to the density of the medium in which it finds itself. Is this object denser than water? Then the object sinks. Is the object less dense than the surrounding air? Then the object floats. Gravity is not necessary for that. Bringing gravity into it actually leaves you with more questions, like if density and buoyancy are not stronger forces than gravity, which they aren't, not according to y'all, why doesn't gravity drag that beach ball full of oxygen down to the bottom of the ocean? It's odd that a little buoyancy in a beach ball can overpower the gravity of an entire planet. But perhaps I'm digressing.
In other words, buoyancy doesn't make sense without gravity. Things do not infinitely float up. They eventually settle on top of whatever they are more buoyant than. People are most familiar with helium balloons, as helium is lighter than the air that surrounds it, and that's why it floats up. The problem is, when there is no air for it to float on top of, a helium balloon, like everything else, falls down to the earth. This is
The helium-filled balloon is at first less dense than the surrounding oxygen, so it floats. God, help me. Please help me. Okay, just one more time. Once the chamber is made to be a near vacuum, the helium-filled balloon became more dense than the surrounding environment and therefore sank to the bottom. I swear he's trying to use the old CIA double talk on us. Sheesh.
science on the creating the one that is an explex
or in mathematic theory, and both are different from the
Look. Let me be super gracious right now. Let me be like as gracious as I can be. Or what word am I looking for? Not gracious. Generous. I'm all for learning from anyone, regardless of their status in society, as well as many other factors. I'm all for assessing the message instead of the messenger, right? That being said, when you're bringing up Satanists to support your position, I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot on some level. Or bare minimum, it should give one a reason to pause and reflect on the life choices that have brought you here, the habits that have made you who you are now. Can you imagine that baby bird boy looking at his future self here? You think he'd be proud or disappointed knowing eventually in the future he'll grow up to rely on a Lucifer worshiper to tell him that a scientific theory means fact and that the words are synonymous, to make an argument against an argument that he constructed for himself. Just hard for me to take this seriously sometimes. Alright, we can skip it.
like it to be
above all out loud counter without
to be seen on app fly. There's not full vacuum, but they can't.
Yeah, this one was just funny to me because I was like, so that means nobody can fly in space? if there's very little air or anything, then you can't fly. And this wobbly warbler winch is grating my senses. Now I'll get over it. But let's see, what's the note say? Okay, just another little piece, I think.
Half of the sun
through.
You can realize he's looking at the moon through that same because of the atmosphere, but somehow he doesn't realize he's looking at the moon through that same atmosphere.
Right. This one, Lord Jamar said something about like the moon is transparent because we're seeing blue through the moon. Which, if you think about the moon being in our atmosphere instead of outside, then you see what he's trying to say. But I will say this, although I don't agree with that in particular. I don't think it's a good argument anyway. I will say this, you shouldn't be able to see stars through the moon if it's solid. In either of our worldviews, right? Not just mine, but yours as well. There's no reason that we should be able to see stars through the earth. Through the moon. It is a little late. But if someone ever did see that, man, we'd have some proof to give our fine feathered friend. I mean, if you were to look for such images, I don't think you'd find them. There's no way, right? No way. Huh. Oh yeah, you brought up the fossils earlier. Did I ever go over that? Oh no, what the hell is this? What the fuck happened to my notes? I don't know what happened to him. Damn, man. That sucks. We might just have to reboot that thing, man. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But yeah. All right. Notes say we move ahead just a bit, I believe. All right. Yeah, we'll move ahead about a minute.
9. Here's what it's like to go to school for firearms technology and gunsmith.
Well, gunsmithing, that does sound nice.
All they change the footage of real fucking planets. What they do is they pulse. They change color.
Yeah, you showed me
They
that.
change shape and all this type of shit. They are not fucking round.
Challenge accepted. Here is footage of Jupiter. Looks round to me. Here is.
Now, you notice Jamar mentioned a specific strength, a specific quality, a specific kind of camera. I'm not sure why a particular individual, a particular ornithological hybrid creature didn't see fit to actually look for the footage from the specific camera that Lamar prefaced this information with. I wonder why he would do such a thing. I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. Did I? I may have misgendered the silly goose. Anyway, here's some footage from the P900 camera. Make of it what you will. See what Lord Jamar was talking about.
YouTube Premium is ad-free
Maybe.
YouTube
Eventually.
and the YouTube
They
Music
want me
app
to get
all
premium.
together.
So how long is this anyway? Okay, just a couple minutes. I'll let this one rock, and I'll be back in just a minute. But y'all, tell me what y'all think of this. Is it just a trick of the light, or is there something a little bit more to it? Now, do you see a bit of a difference between the images? Now, he'll claim that the pulsing comes from not filtering out the atmosphere or something like that, but it doesn't look anything similar at all. But who's to say? I can't say. I will give you this too.
The Bible has God miraculously creating the world and everything in it in just 6 days about 6,000 years ago. But the theory of evolution has a much different timescale, taking millions of years to go from goo to me and you by way of the zoo. Which view is correct?
Sorry.
Well, to be honest, both views require faith because no one was there thousands or millions of years ago to observe how evolution be scientifically validated? Can we really prove this idea deep time using the same observational science we use for making medicine and putting people on the moon? Validation is the process of confirming what is believed to be true by what can be observed to be true. Has this ever been done for radiometric dating, the process that gives us the very idea of long ages? Actually, long ages and radiometric dating hasn't stood up to the validation test. Radiometric dating has never been validated against the absolute known ages of rocks. Let us explain. Consider Mount St. Helens. This volcano erupted in the 1980s, giving scientists the opportunity to date the rocks that were formed from the eruption. The results? 5 different ages, all between 350,000 and 2.8 million years old, for rocks that we know were less than 30 years old. This discrepancy happens all the time in radiometric dating studies. In fact, there has never been a radiometric dating analysis that simply produces ages that validate to the known ages of rocks. And if radiometric dating doesn't work for rocks of known ages, why do we trust it for rocks of unknown ages? So the next time you hear millions of years ago this happened or that, just ask, how do you know that for sure? And if radiometric dating is the answer given, just ask, are you aware of a study where the radiometric age of a rock agreed with the known age of the rock? And you'll find the answer will undoubtedly be no. God wrote with his own hand that he created the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them in just 6 ordinary days. The genealogies in Genesis lead us straight back to Adam, just about 6,000 years ago. Have you ever noticed how hard the world pushes the idea of millions of years? Books, movies, museums, schools, it's everywhere. But does any of this even matter? Well, consider this. Many people will only consider the Bible's message if they believe the Bible to be credible, both historically and scientifically. Each person's eternity, either in heaven or hell, depends on what they believe about the risen Christ. And how do we know about this? Well, it's in the Bible. And if people don't believe the Bible got it right,
I don't mean to turn it into a sermon. I just, again, I assess the message and not so much the messenger. Take it for what it is.
Here's footage of Saturn. Saturn looking pretty round, bro. And as for the pulsing he's talking about, that is literally the atmosphere of Earth. You know, the gases in the air. Latin square 70 with the available to show us those rockets leaving the Earth. We have seen the planet. So while I accept your analogy, the problem is, like we know a pool table is flat, we know the Earth is round. We have seen it.
Well, first of all, I will say that looks closer to low Earth orbit. Low Earth orbit. Boy, I'm getting tired. Sorry. But he says we have seen it, and then shows the rocket still in low Earth orbit. But implies as if it's video of one simply going into space. The video shows no curvature. And any curvature that you've seen is due to a fish eye lens curve. And it means nothing because I've seen with those little contraptions the horizon curve inverted up towards the sky the opposite way it should be. So, no.
This.
Well.
Bible, you can't believe in the globe.
That I say, and he does seem to pick.
Listen, have you ever been to space, Mr. $20?
Right.
No.
Right.
You're taking the fucking word of NASA.
But then again, he does seem to pick and choose a lot. What was that about humans being made in the image of God?
He sent you another 20.
What was this? Did I miss this part? My notes?
They're getting their talking points from. I have been called.
Damn.
Earth book. So if you believe in the Bible, you can't believe in the globe.
Damn.
I mean, I agree. That's why I've been calling Flurfs religious for years, as this is where they're getting their talking points from. The only issue I can see being raised here are those Christians that think you don't have to take the Bible literally. To that I say, why not throw out the whole damn book? I don't think God accepts picking and choosing, but then again, he does seem to pick and choose a lot. What was that about humans being made in the image of God?
He said.
Well, again, we'll go ahead and put this here. I believe that he's saying this to denigrate religious people, forgetting that the Christian church essentially gave birth to science as we know it because they believed in God, they thought that there was order in the universe, so they thought that if there's order in the universe, then there would be a way for them to discover a way to interact with the language of the universe or the building blocks of it. Because they believed there was a designer, they believed that they would find order. Plus the very notion you're defending to your last breath was put forth by a Catholic named Copernicus. Pretty sure if I told you heliocentrism was born from evil white racism, you'd be a Flurf leader tomorrow, because you don't seem to have many principles or morals that aren't subjective, especially if you are believing in evolution and this Big Bang stuff, but or if you're against God or don't believe in God. But anyway, with Copernicus, there's a funny story, a prevailing story associated with Sir Cope. The story goes he begged the church not to publish his works until after he died. Isn't that so altruistic, so normal, so human, that a person would discover something so groundbreaking that it's going to change how people everywhere perceive the earth, the solar system, the universe, and their place within it, and say, I don't want any credit in this life? Or is it more likely he didn't truly believe this theory that he was commissioned to breathe life into and didn't want to have to defend it for the rest of his days? Or, is that just a rumor and he didn't want to publish his works while he was alive for a completely unrelated reason? Who knows? But as luck would have it, his work was published the year he died. What's that saying that Batman always said? That's just a coincidence. Ignore it, Rabbit. Pow! It slaps him across the face. I think that was it.
No. Right. So his budget is? But incentive to lie.
It's actually $68 million a day, but who's counting?
But incentive to lie, $3 million a day.
Flurfs always think the only space agency is NASA. Here, the fledgling has taken the time to put the text on the screen saying NASA isn't the only space agency. This is a tangent, I know, but yes, the only nations with space programs also signed the Antarctic Treaty, the only peacefully held treaty in human history. But yes, keep in mind that he says now that he's reminding you that NASA isn't the only space program on Earth. Now, why is he saying that right now? There's really no good reason for him to. It just hurts him in a second, but he has a way of stepping onto these rakes.
Hey. Damn. Hell of an incentive to lie.
It's actually $68 million a day, but who's counting? Do you know how much your Christian churches make per day? $204 million.
So he brings up the latest church revenue statistics shows that religious congregations in the U.S. take in around $74.5 1.5 billion from around 17 million Americans each year. Now that's counting all well, I don't know. Because that's weird how that sentence is structured, because it says church revenue statistics in religious congregations. But then the next sentence delineates what kind of congregations, what kind of religious congregations to American Christians. But there's a whole lot of denominations that have nothing to do with one another. And usually each church is using that money in its own local community and to keep up with the church, to maintain the church. It's not like they're using the money to buy green screens, to film spacewalks, to get billions of dollars for themselves and their 3 or 4 friends that own plane companies, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's the same. And when you include all the space programs around the world that he wanted to remind us that exist, right? So India's space program, Japan's, Russia's, basically all the countries that signed that Antarctic treaty, I'm pretty sure it's a lot more than $68 million a day. Just saying.
$1 a day.
Where are we
gonna
at?
say anything about that? Or is that okay because they profess to believe in your...
Yeah.
Because they are on the other side of a ball.
Yeah, this one was kind of funny.
These people do
appear to be revolving around us because they are.
This is why being a flurf is almost exclusively a Northern Hemisphere phenomenon, as people in Australia and South Africa do not even see the North.
Yeah, they don't see the North Star, but this isn't an argument that you should use between, well, to determine whether it's flat or globular. Because they wouldn't need to be on the other side of the pair to be unable to see the North Star. They do, I guess, technically for his argument, but not for the flat Earth argument. You can just be far enough from the center to not see it. You know what I mean? I guess we'll just bring it up for a visual reference. Azimuthal equidistant map. So, for instance, let me make sure we can actually see it. Okay, so for instance, with Australia being, well, with the center being here in the center, obviously the North Pole's above here. So the further away you get from there, out to Australia, Japan, the closer you get to Antarctica, the less likely it is going to be that you can see the Northern Star. So it's kind of a pointless argument to be using in this circumstance, in my opinion. What's next? I really don't like many of these arguments. I think they're kind of trash, and there's like a bunch of. I just think it's a shite argument in a lot of cases. We can go a little bit, and then we're gonna
Star in this American ride is relatively smooth. Feel around them. The ball. These people give ammunition to the folks that say Americans think the.
Yeah, we're about to. There's not really many good arguments here. Actually, there aren't any. Most of these are just government talking points.
$1 gyroscope that Flurfs bought and debunked themselves with.
Oh yeah, sorry about this. The part about this that no one ever talks about is how gyroscopes only work on a flat surface. The same way that these gyroscopes help to develop the artificial horizon for planes, they only function on flat surfaces. Radar only works at a certain amount of miles. If it's a curved surface, then it should be even less than the hundreds upon hundreds of miles that radar can detect something on a same level as it. Just trashy. Just like no thinking ass. Like, I mean, I get it. I'm not trying to condemn him personally, but those ideas are trash, and I was taught the same ones, so I know how trashy they are now. Like, I think that's part of why it's despicable to me, is that people are really deceived into believing this horse shit. What do my notes say? Because I think I'm like officially burnt out. It's 1:30 in the morning. And I do want to see if I can just put this right on YouTube, since he dropped this like a day or two ago. And I just wrote my notes and I was like, fuck this motherfucker. Yeah, it says I can skip at 6, so that's what we're gonna do. Yeah.
To the top with
gay technique. Inescapable logic you have there, sir. Anyway, the argument here is that there is no harm in believing in flat Earth, and time and again, that has been proven untrue. Almost without fail, flat earthers also believe in other conspiracy theories that are actually harmful, because if they would lie to you about the shape of the Earth, of course, they are lying about vaccines and the election and Jews controlling the media and eugenics and all other sorts of conspiracies where real people get hurt.
You're going to make a claim that ideas, that conspiracy theories hurt people. I would like to see the evidence for that. I really would. Because otherwise, I have to look at you and say, here's a grown-ass, bird-chested shoebill of a man who's scared of people having ideas. He thinks ideas are dangerous, just like slave owners on the plantation did. Oh, you can't think for yourself, boy. That's a danger to the system. Even if you're only planning on talking to people, your ideas are violence. He sounds like a real 100-year-old Dennis Schroeder right now. Or perhaps he's simply parroting puppets or pundits. It would be also ironic or poignant or just right for the Birdman to be parroting. When they say speech and ideas are violence and should be condemned unless it increases the power of the state, or if it's in service of whatever group is currently filling my pockets, or if it's for the greater good. A cruel irony is how much loss of life and liberty has been achieved in the name of security and the greater good for the soft and the weak. But I'm going to stop here, as I believe I've made my point. If you made it to the end of this, you have the patience of a saint. Trying to do it live and whatnot is not exactly simple, but it did save me having to edit this joint the dead space, the dead air. I could put some music. I mean, we could re-upload with some edits, you know what I'm saying, later, whatever. But I appreciate you coming through. I appreciate you deciding to spend some of your precious free time listening to me rant and get some of my thoughts out here and on this guy's takes on this topic. I don't really aim to persuade anyone, just merely give another perspective, my perspective. Because I was truly passionate about this subject at one point, and I did pour a lot of time and effort into researching it because I thought it was a psyop. I thought that like the government was like, well, you know what'll make conspiracy theories look really crazy? Convince them the earth is flat, and they'll go walking around telling people that and wasting their time and making themselves look crazy. It's a good idea. And I'm happy to be proven wrong. If you feel as though you can, by all means, please do. I'd rather be right. I don't attach much, if any, of my identity to my own limited understanding and knowledge of this world. Yeah, this is just me, man. I mean, but this theory is just funny to me, like, because there's so much. It's Swiss cheese. There's no... the only things that have been observed are easily fraudulent. You know? And so much like evolution, you start to look at it and say, does this pass the scientific method? Is it observable? Is it testable? And can we accurately hypothesize as to what's going to happen as a result of it? And the answer with many of these things, with evolution, with the Big Bang, with the shape of the earth, it's no. It doesn't pass the smell test. It doesn't pass the bare minimum. You know, if you'd pay attention in science class when you were a kid learning the scientific method, you'd understand that if something doesn't pass these, then it's not scientific. And since no human beings are going to be around for billions of years to check the half-life on strontium, or to see if a single-celled organism is able to become everything on the planet, it's not scientific to assume so in building a scientific theory. But anyway, one of the Swiss cheese holes is plain sailing. Another topic for another day, but for thousands of years up until today, sailors everywhere can chart by the stars and sail as if the earth was flat and arrive at their destination safe and sound, more accurately than a lot of people who are trying to use spherical trigonometry up to this day. Another one, the scientific community will tell us we're spinning 1,000 miles per hour. We're orbiting the sun at 10,000 miles per hour. We're following the sun on its orbit at 100,000 miles per hour, yet we never see different constellations. It's even crazier when you take into account these motherfuckers claim that many of the stars that we see are actually in different galaxies, which makes it that much more monumentally unlikely, astronomically unlikely, that they would just so happen to move in lock and step with our lowly planet's wobbly rotation for tens of thousands of years, to the point that they seem to be unchanging. And I could just go on and on and on, but Batman did always tell me to ignore coincidences, and you should always diddy the truth if it hurts you politically or financially. But I'm going to leave y'all with a short. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to leave y'all with a short. I saw that shit earlier today. It was Jordan Peterson. And I find it poignant for parts of Birdman's take on religious people, which seem to be kind of negative in connotation and in spirit. Depending on the difficulties that I'll see if I can edit this and maybe make it a little better or whatever, or if doing it this way isn't really feasible. I know I could do multiple takes with audio and whatnot if I didn't do this in a live manner, but I don't have enough space on this computer right now for some more software to edit. So, and this is my first time in 20 years really messing with this audio-visual shit, and it's just been really fun getting back into it. But I don't want to burn myself out by trying to do too much too quickly. But I did want to do this video because it just was kind of fun reacting to it. And I don't know, shit, I might end up doing this more often. But I love y'all humans. Y'all stay free, stay safe, stay armed. I'm signing out, bitch. Sorry, but Angry Zebra Predator on Twitch. We out this bitch. Peace.
This is one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard.
I think I can demolish the atheistic argument permanently. With the death of God, many other things die, things you don't expect. And one of the things that dies when God dies is science, and no one expected that.
How so?
Because science as a practice is a religious practice. It's predicated on religious axioms. You have to believe that there's such a thing as truth. You have to believe that the truth is understandable. You have to believe that understanding the truth is good. You have to believe that there is such a thing as good. Right? So imagine, to be a scientist, you have to imagine that, first of all, that the world is comprehensible to the human intellect.
Wow.
But more, that if you investigate the mysteries of the material world, that will be beneficial. Right? Those aren't scientific claims. Those are metaphysical claims. And that metaphysical claim is nested in a story.
I don't really know what else to add to that besides science and believing in God are not incompatible. In fact, if you love God, you will love science because all truth points back to Him. And if you love science, it's going to lead you to the capital T truth at some point. This is one of the most brilliant.
And that metaphysical claim is nested in a story.
I don't really know what else to add to that besides science and believing in God are not incompatible. In fact, if you love God, you will love science because all truth points back to Him. And if you love science, it's going to lead you to the capital T truth at some point. This is one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard.
I think I can demolish the atheistic argument permanently. With the death of God, many other things die, things you don't expect. And one of the things that dies when God dies is science, and no one expected that.
How so?
Because science as a practice is a religious practice. It's predicated on religious axioms. You have to believe that there's such a thing as truth. You have to believe that the truth is understandable. You have to believe that understanding the truth is good. You have to believe that there is such a thing as good. Right? So imagine, to be a scientist, you have to imagine that, first of all, that the world is comprehensible to the human intellect.
Wow.
But more, that if you investigate the mysteries of the material world, that will be beneficial. Right? Those aren't scientific claims. Those are metaphysical claims. And that metaphysical claim is nested in a story.
I don't really know what else to add to that.